So this is the agenda in brief. What are we going to discuss today? First of all, I'd like to clarify why you need this certificate, in your bag. Then we'll go through the modules, and these are the 4 modules that I will be discussing: risk management, threat management, vulnerability management, and then tools and architecture of security. Okay, and then we'll have our question and answer round at the end. So the need of CYSA. So CompTIA is a certificate for IT professionals who sort of want to excel in their career, both technically and non-technically. How non-technically is when you have the certain technical skills with you. It helps you grow, laterally in an organization. If you want to become a SOC manager, if you want to, have a holistic approach about security and become a CISO 10 years, 15 years down the line. So I think this is where you should start, because CYSA covers a lot of ground in cybersecurity, yet there remains a lot of uncovered ground now. But CYSA is a course which I like very much because it has a mix and match of all different verticals of cybersecurity. You'll get an opportunity to dive into forensics a little bit, and then you'll get an opportunity to look into incident response, right? How vulnerability management works, how risk works, what are risk frameworks and why they are necessary. So it sort of covers everything which is necessary to start your journey into cybersecurity, and then you can build your future on top of all these concepts that you have learned, right? The skills that you attain, the skills. Mistake, can you go on mute, please? Thank you. So the skills that you attain, as I talked about, these are the 4 modules: threat management, vulnerability management, cyber incident response and forensics, and security architecture and toolset. The thought of coming up with this webinar for blue teamers, for SOC people, was that SOC people are not very versed into forensics, right, and into penetration testing, into red teaming and all those things. This is something which is out of our scope, right? I am a blue teamer myself, but I devote some of my time, some of my free time into learning what I don't get to learn professionally, right? Professionally, I don't get to learn about Wireshark and Nmap and how forensics works, but those things are also necessary. There was a very good quote which I read some time ago. If you want to beat a hacker, you have to think like a hacker. So to develop that kind of mindset, you need to know what tools and technologies are implemented into reconnaissance and penetration testing and all those things. So that is why I had this thought to come up with this webinar, and that is where I met with InfosecTrain, and we sort of came up with a webinar that will help people establish their ground into cybersecurity with the help of CYSA, this certification. I hope that after this webinar, a lot of you join us for our full course, right? That is going to start shortly, and after that, I hope to see you all certified into CYSA Plus. But that's the thing after. Let's discuss this webinar first. So starting with the domain, here is how the exam will be divided. Okay, so 27% of the questions will be based on threat management, 26% will be on vulnerability management, and 23% on IR and 24% on architecture. So as you can see, all the portions are well balanced, and you'll have to learn everything to excel into this examination. A little bit about this examination: you'll have to score 75% of total marks to attain this certificate. The exam will be of 1,000 marks, and you'll have to come up with 750 or more to pass this exam. So you can see that it's not one of those exams where one portion is deliberately kept very heavy, right? And then you can read about that, and then you can gain a lot of score in the examination. So this is the motive of this exam, and this is the motive of this certificate. If you are to pass CYSA Plus, you'll have to have basic understanding of all these different portions of these different tangents into CYSA Plus, right? So this is what I like particularly about this certificate as well. So we will discuss about these 4 and a lot of other things which you want to discuss at the end of this session as we move on. Okay. So first things first, threat management. Right. Let's drag this here. Yeah. So this is what CySA talks about when it talks about threat management. It says you'll have to have knowledge about Nmap, NetStat, right? You will have to have knowledge about packet analysis and all these other tools which are same ideas, NetFlow, packet analysis. You can see there are lots of information to be discussed, lots of tool to be experienced when you start reading about CySA. You'll get to experience a lot of more technologies, a lot of more concepts which build cybersecurity as we speak, right? I have some examples included for Nmap and Wireshark, which I think is very, very crucial for blue teamers, for SOC people. Again, the reason SOC people do not get to work on Nmap on daily basis, they do not get to analyze packets in real time through Wireshark, but you should have the basic knowledge. And I would most likely, most definitely, help you to get the basic knowledge or the basic understanding of all these tools, which directly do not fall into blue teamers bin, right? So this is one of the modules of CySA Plus. Given a scenario, analyze results of network reconnaissance. So from exams perspective, they'll give you a scenario, a result of a Nmap scan possibly, and then on the basis of that scan, they'll ask you some questions like what are the ports which are open, which you can see through the results, right? Or what services are enabled that could be targeted, after the reconnaissance step. So this is the sort of questions that will be asked. Right. Some of you are not able to hear me. I would request you to join again, leave the meeting and join again. Okay, now you can hear. Thank you. Right. So you'll also have the basic understanding of SIM, IDS, NetFlow, and Packet Analyzer. If you guys are not familiar with SIM, SIM is a central log management technology which not only logs your events but also correlates different events to come up with with a scenario which can help you catch bad guys or bad threat actors. Okay, IDS is a network security device, right? So it's intrusion detection system. Similar is intrusion prevention system. So you have to have basic knowledge about these things. At least high-level knowledge of how a SIM works, how an IDS works, how NetFlow Analyzer works, so on and so forth, right? So NetFlow Analyzer, Packet Analyzer, and Wireshark are different flavors of the same technology, the same tool, right? The technology is Devendra, I think, yeah. So I would request everybody to just sit back and listen to what I'm saying, and then we'll discuss if you want to have discussed something. If you have any questions, otherwise, please just be on mute and then enjoy this webinar. Thank you. So another module talks about given a network-based threat, implement or recommend appropriate response and countermeasures. This is where you'll get to learn about honeypot. If you guys are not familiar about honeypot, it's a brilliant concept of luring criminals or hackers into a trap which you have built. And on the basis of that, you can catch who's targeting your organization, right?
Thank you.
NAC or network access control is another very crucial control which is implemented in all the big organizations, right? By this you can control who's logging in into your network from where. So it has different rules, time-based rule, role-based rule, or location-based rule, right? An example could be if you are a bank, you should not allow your employees to log into your internal computers on Saturdays and Sundays, right? Except the people who are going to patch the system. Yeah. So this is one example how you can create a network access control rule. Okay, you'll get to learn about network segmentation, how what's VLAN and how it comes off benefit, right? So VLAN is a great technology which is discovered, which is used to separate. Who's that? Hey Rohan, I can hear a lot of noise from your mic. Can you please be on mute? Thank you. I'd request everybody to please maintain the decorum of this webinar. Okay, thank you. Right, another module which talks about teams in particular. We have red team, blue team, white team. Okay, red team are the penetration testers or ethical hackers, as you know. Blue teamers are the defenders, which work on different cybersecurity tools like firewalls, antivirus, SIM, IDS, IPS. And there comes white team, which is the third part. The white teamers are the managers, the SOC managers, which do not take part into the activities actively. You're not on mute. Smita, I would request you to be available and then mute people who are going off mute. And then if they are repeating this activity, so please kick them out, all right? Because it's disturbing everybody, right? So white team consists of SOC managers who do not take active participation into the day-to-day activities of cybersecurity, but they do come into picture when something big has happened like this. If there's a priority one incident, if there's a major breakdown, then they come into play. Okay. Yeah. Reverse engineering. What's reverse engineering? It's actually taking out a software and then looking into the code or the core configuration of that code and trying to take out something which can work in your favor against that code, right? If this is not clearer, we'll discuss it, as we go through the slides. I will come back to this point and I'll stress upon it as we go through. Okay. So here is a real life example of Nmap, a sample snapshot of Nmap. So notice that I have some hyperlinks as well in the slides, and I'll distribute this slide after this presentation. So you'll click on this slide, you'll click on this hyperlink, and then go to the website which talks more about this technology here, for example, Nmap. Okay, so there will be 3 to 4 questions based on this single technology, which is Nmap. Why this is so important? Because this is essentially the first step of the cyber kill chain, right? So if you guys are familiar with Lockheed Smith's cyber kill chain, the first step is the reconnaissance step, right? Which is also called digital footprinting, right? Or getting to know your victim or getting to know your target. So Nmap is run to discover what services are open that could be exploited. Okay. There are a lot of options available with Nmap. You can run stealth scan, TCP scan, UDP scan. Also, you're not bound to use the CLI version of Nmap. There is another tool called Nmap, which has a UI, which makes it relatively easier for people who are starting with Nmap. Right? So you have a full-fledged UI where you just have to point and click, and then you can do all these things that you do from CLI. Okay. CLI again is not that difficult, but yeah. Just for your information, you have the UI available as well. The tool's name is Nmap. Okay. So as you can see here that some of these green entries are there, which shows that these ports are open and then listening to everybody who's trying to send out packets to them, right? So these are potentially available to be exploited. If they are exploitable, then you can use these ports to get into the server, right? So this is what this diagram talks about, that there are 90 filtered ports. So notice that there are not shown 90 filtered ports. And if you see the last line, it says one IP address was scanned in just 2 seconds. So in a jiffy, you have scanned all the ports on one server, right? And you have got a good report of what ports are available for your next attacks. And then you can plan your attack from there, and then you can proceed. Filtered ports are those who Nmap has not able to reach out, right? Neither it can say that they are closed, they are being blocked by the firewall or something, or they are not also open. So that is why, sorry? Okay, just some noise, I guess. So filter ports are those which Nmap says that they are not available for communication.
Yes.
Obviously, can you please Bhagyashree, if you can hear us. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about some common switches. Here I have included the hyperlink to Cyber Chain, okay, Lockheed Smith Cyber Chain, which I was just talking about. So you can click on that and then visit the official website where you can read about all those 7 steps in very detail. Right, so some common switches on which you can get some straightforward questions in the exam is, the first is TCP SYN scan, right? So this comes off of the three-way handshake. Of course, the first packet which is sent is the SYN packet. So you can do the SYN scan. You can flood all the ports or all the servers with the SYN packet simply by hitting this switch is -SS, right? And then there is TCP connect scan. There is UDP scans as well. And then there are a lot of other flavors available in terms of scan. You can do XMA scans. You can do a lot of other scans, right? That is completely based on your requirement. How do you need to scan the server, and you can proceed as you need. Okay. So this is another flavor of the scan result, right? Here you cannot see the dose, but what you see here is the service. Okay. You can see that the operating system, it has successfully discovered that the target is running on Windows 7 Professional Service Pack 1, right? The computer name, the NetBIOS name, everything is available. See that it also says that it is running SMB, right? SMB version 2 is enabled. Okay, so you see that there's a lot of insight available just by running a simple scan on an asset, provided that the scan goes through. Yeah. So this is why Nmap becomes very crucial. And then the best thing is you cannot stop Nmap from scanning your network, right? There are certain ports which you need to be enabled to have those crucial communication. For example, you need to have your SSH open, which is port 22. You need to have your SMTP open for sending out and receiving emails, right? You need to have your DNS open. You need to have your DHCP open, right? So there are certain ports which you cannot close, which you have to put open, and then whenever something is open, Nmap can discover it just by pinging it and then show you the result, right? So if I was a hacker, I now have a lot of information about this asset, and then I can concentrate with a more targeted strategy about this asset, because I know that all the exploits which are relevant for Windows 7, only those will work here because it's a Windows 7 SP1, right? So I have the forest name, the domain name. I have a lot of information about this asset which I can go through with. Yeah. Okay. Enough about Nmap. Let's talk a little bit about Wireshark or Packet Sniffer. Packet Sniffer is a great technology. Again, you can just silently put it in a LAN or in a network, and everything going through that local network will be seen on your desktop through this. Yeah. Another thing, you can record packets, or you can record certain session for a certain time, and then you can play it back into Wireshark for forensic analysis. So there are two benefits of Wireshark. One, you can monitor real-time traffic, and the better option, which I like very much, is you can record certain sessions and then play them back, right? And then you can play them back for your forensic analysis, right? What you see here is a string of packets which were exchanged over TCP protocol, right? What you see below is the hexadecimal presentation of that packet, how that packet looks actually, okay? And the second window shows you, the frame level information and what is the NIC used, right? Network interface card used, what is the IP protocol version, what is the source IP address, and all those information about the network layer. That is shown in the second window, and the third window, or the third part of the window, shows you the exact hexadecimal numbers which consist of the packet. Okay. So this is just one entry which you have highlighted, and then what you can do is you can right click on any of those entries. Like here, you can do a right click and then you can follow the TCP stream or follow UDP stream. That's a great option when you are analyzing web traffic, right? So that will show you the complete stream of what data was sent, what data was received on a particular page, or in a particular request what data was exchanged. So that is another benefit that you can take out of Wireshark. Yeah, so this is just a demonstration, just an introductory image of Wireshark. There will be 2 to 3 questions on it, of course. You'll have to, I'm not saying that you'll have to be very versed with Wireshark, but yeah, you'll have to have the basic knowledge of how filtering works in Wireshark and how you can read the packets, and then how you can go through the packets to find out the most relevant information, right? So yeah, probably this will make more sense. And from this slide, we are entering into more interesting examples, right? So this is an ARP spoofing attack, right? So what I'm discussing here is an attack happening in real time, okay? How is this an attack? If you see the fifth and the last entry, which is encircled, right? So you can see that the same MAC address is tied up to 2 different IP addresses, which should not be a case in real life. Yeah, MAC address and IP address is unique for every asset. It is how you identify an asset in a network, right? So one MAC address should be tied up with one IP address, and so vice versa. Okay. So this is a genuine case of ARP spoofing, ARP-based address resolution protocol, which gives you IP address with respect to MAC address, and then there is reverse ARP. So we're not here to discuss those, but yeah, this is just to give you an idea of how you can catch an attack with Wireshark. See, I have not used anything else. None of the other tools are used. Just by using a simple Wireshark, just by viewing the packets in real time, I have circled out these 2 things. And then with this, I can have this confirmed decision that yeah, the app is spoofed, right? So right now, if I'm a hacker, I have the MAC address of a different asset. I can do whatever I want, and I will not be to blame. Okay, so this is what I can do. Right. This is what I was talking about. The third option, how you can follow TCP stream. Yeah. So a post was sent, something was requested from a web server, which you can see from here, and all the relative information. See, what I can conclude from this image is something was sent over HTTP protocol, and if I was sniffing this packet, I now know the password for somebody. The username is V4L, as you can see in the highlighted section, and the login password is just for for something. So that is the password, which is clearly visible because he is using HTTP, and which is not secure, which sends and receives text into clear text, right? So now I can see the password, and probably I can use that password to log into his account and do whatever I want. This is what I can do just by reading this packet, just by following the TCP stream. So this becomes very handy when you're trying to analyze something in real life, or when you're trying to go for forensics and then you're trying to analyze something which has happened, right? So this tool becomes very handy. But again, I think most of the blue teamers are not very familiar with this. That's why I decided to keep these things into this webinar. Okay. So yeah, how you do it? Instructions are on the left. You start capturing packets, open the stream, and then you click on any of the row and then right click it. There you'll see an option of follow stream, follow TCP stream. Once you click on that option, a new window should pop up, and then this is the window that you should see. Okay. And moreover, you can print out this, you can save this out, and you can find something out. If you want to find a string, then you can do Control F and then find that out in this. Okay. So that is where we stop with threat management, and that is where we start with vulnerability management, which is the second module. Of course, vulnerability analysis or vulnerability scanning is something which most of us are familiar with, most of the SOC people are familiar with. But what we're not into is, if we were to exploit these vulnerabilities, how would we do that, right? What we do is, we run a simple tool like Nessus, Qualys, and then once the tool runs, we generate a report, and then we share it with different teams, Windows, Linux, database, so on and so forth. And then we just follow up with them, right? But the real question comes, do we know what exploits are used, right? And how those exploits are working? If we knew that, then possibly we had better cure for this, for the problem, or better solution for the problem, right? But I think this is where the blue teamers lack into information, right? So this is why I wanted to show these slides, to make you guys more aware of what you want to learn, what you should learn. If you want to have holistic approach about cybersecurity, I think you should put more not time into the exploits, how the exploits are built up, how they work, how they run, what parameters they use. So these are some important questions which needs to be answered, apart from the regular scanning and then reporting and all those stuff. Now, down below is a very, very common image of a vulnerability management lifecycle. Of course, you start with the preparation. You have a list of your IP address with you, which is given by business team. And then you run your scan. You discover the vulnerabilities, you analyze them, you prioritize them, and then you report them out. After that, it is sent to different teams where they remediate it, they take different actions, they harden their server, or they apply the relative patch, and then after that you analyze it again. So the same cycle goes again and again. But there is no actual learning for vulnerability scanner, associate or the person who is running the scan. It is the tool which is doing the scanning. Right? You're just exporting it out in Excel and then sharing it with different teams. That's all you're doing. I'm not saying that what people do as vulnerability scanner is something which is not a good job, but you should concentrate more on learning how those exploits are working. It is for your own good, right? Because anyway, everybody knows that AI is coming into the picture very rapidly. Machine learning and artificial intelligence is coming more and more towards us every day. So it's better that we as people know a lot of technology, a lot of insight about technology, right? Rather than just knowing the UI, and then rather than just knowing what option lies where, because a machine can do that. There are machines which can point and click on certain buttons, right? If you do not know how that works actually, then probably your job is going to put in danger. Okay, so again, this is not something to scare you guys out, but yeah, something what I feel needs to be taken care of immediately, right? So enough about vulnerability management. So we have discussed the life cycle, how you discover threats, discover vulnerabilities, and how you get them patched proactively with different teams, right? Again, this is very important. If you have your vulnerabilities unpatched, then you are inviting for an attack, right? So very, very important part of cybersecurity. But yeah, I would again urge you guys to read more about exploits rather than just relying on the tool. Okay. So compare and contrast common vulnerabilities found in the following targets. The target could be a server, an endpoint, anything in your network infrastructure. It could be a switch, a router, a phone, a webcam. Even a webcam can be exploited, right? There was a major attack which happened in one of the biggest companies in US. And what if I were to tell you that all of it started with a POS device, point of sale device, right? The hacker compromised the point of sale device, and in turn the computer which was attached to the point of sale device, and then from there on the infection spread. Okay, so everything is important and everything can be exploited, right? So okay, this is a snapshot of Nessus, how you see vulnerabilities in real time in Nessus, if you guys are familiar with the UI of Nessus. So this is one vulnerability which is opened up in Nessus, which is bash remote code execution or shell shock. I understand that this is not a new vulnerability. This is very, very old. Yeah, this was discovered back in 2014. Okay, but again, this is a very, this is one of those vulnerabilities. This is one of those vulnerabilities which disturbed a lot of Linux administrators for huge amount of time. Okay, because Linux once found guilty of a vulnerability, it's not easily remediated. There are not a lot of regular patches available for Linux. On contrary of Windows, Windows have their patch Tuesday, which is the second Tuesday of every month, and then they have security updates posted regularly. One of the people asked, asked me that why is that Windows is more vulnerable than Linux, and my answer out of experience was Windows is not more vulnerable. Windows is more user friendly, and Windows is easier to use. A lot of people use Windows all over the globe. That is why hackers target Windows more than Linux. Okay, this is the simple reason. Yeah. So Nessus, Qualys, and QVM. Why I have listed three of these technologies. The questions which I saw mostly will be based on these three. So if you have hands-on on any of these three, this is going to be a big help to you in the exam. Okay. So we have just talked about Qualys. We have just talked about Nessus. Here is a snapshot from Qualys card. So separate tool under the same technology. Right. This is again a vulnerability management tool. It gives you a very good report of what sort of vulnerabilities lies into your infrastructure, criticality wise or severity wise or count wise. You can separate different vulnerabilities. If they are more critical, then they have to be addressed first. If they are not very critical, yes, they could be spared some days, right? So yeah, a lot of clients which are PCI enabled have this mandatory that all the critical vulnerabilities should be taken care of in 30 days, right? So this is one of the requirements, or this is one of the controls which PCI framework talks about. A framework is something which I'm going to talk about briefly, in the next slides, which is also very relevant for this exam. So yeah, just to give you a flavor of what sort of use it finds out. So that's the reason. Okay. Yeah. So top vulnerabilities, I've tried to gather the top vulnerabilities. Here's a very good link of a white paper published by Skybox. So if you were to visit this link, you will get a document published by Skybox where it talks about vulnerabilities in detail, or rather trend of vulnerabilities in 2018. How things went in 2018 with respect to vulnerabilities, how they have risen count-wise, and then how the trend has changed, right? So you can see that, and everybody knows that in cybersecurity, everybody knows that we have moved on from simple worm or Trojans to now remote access Trojans, or advanced persistent threats. APTs and RATs are something which are not very easily discovered, right? Because they have these, their methods are very adaptive according to what infrastructure lies ahead. Their methods are very adaptive, and then they are so stealthy that they can wait for 30, 60, 65, 90 days before they strike your organization. That is why it becomes very, very difficult to find those out. Yeah. The browsers which are the most exploited, Chrome tops the list again, followed by Edge closely, and then there comes Firefox. So that is why I personally prefer Firefox. It has less security holes, right? So, but again, it depends on individual's choice. So, yeah. Again, vulnerability wise, a cryptocurrency miner has topped the list of the vulnerability, the attack actually, which has risen throughout the globe, right? And now you can see that the worm is at the last and Trojan is at the last. There was a time when worm was at the top of this list, but now it is shadowed by cryptocurrency miner and remote access Trojan. Okay, botnet comes the third, followed by ransomware, of course. So enough about vulnerability management. Till now I have tried to give an overview of strictly what CySA asks you to read about, in terms of TM or threat management and vulnerability management. So on to our third module now. Let's talk a little bit about IR and forensics. Okay. So it says that given a scenario, distinguish threat data or behavior to determine the impact of an incident. What it talks about is, in the exam, they'll give you a scenario that something bad has happened, a ransomware has broken out, right? Or a really bad or really nasty malware has broken out, and then how you should follow the steps. Okay. A word of advice to everybody who's going to appear for CYSA exam. Unlike other exam, it has a difference in terms of the questions that are asked. So they'll give you a question on, say, IR. They'll say that, okay, a ransomware broke out, and which step should you take first, right? So this will be the question, and in the options they'll give you all four legitimate choices, right? Eradicate, isolate, analyze, and report. They'll give you all these four options. All the four options will be correct, so you cannot rule out any of these options. And the question will say that which is the step which you will take first. So then you'll have to take out the first step, or the primary step, or the primary reason which you should take out, right? So this is where CYS exam is a little bit different from other exams, where you can rule out three options and then concentrate on the fourth. So this also goes out to say that you'll have to have knowledge about all the four steps, because if you do not know all the four steps, then it will be very difficult for you to choose what will be the first step. Okay, something which I have seen in my exam, and something which people have told me over and over, right, that there were questions which stressed on what step should be taken first, or what best describes this scenario, right? Whenever you see what best describes, then you'll have to be a little more attentive and evaluate all the options more carefully. Okay. So threat classification, internal, external threat, right? So this is how you on a broader level, on a high level, you classify threats, internal threats and out external threats, and then there are man-made threats, there are natural threats. Okay, so this is all theory, which I think you should go through it in a jiffy first time, and then second time when you're going through it, you should be more thorough, right? So that you have all the contents pictured into your brain, and then you do not forget about the differences and how they are actually defined into the book. Okay, so this is another way that I follow when you are trying to cover a big book, yeah, or a huge book. The practice which I follow is, in the first go, you can be as fast as you can, as rapid as you can, go through it in a jiffy, right? Again, the reason is that you at least see what data is published in the book, what content is published in the book, and when the second time when you revisit it, you remember it partly. So it helps you generate more speed and accuracy the second time. Actually, when you read through it, then you will understand it more. So this is one method which I follow, which I would dearly advise you guys to try it out. Right? It may work out for you, it may not, but yeah, this is an advice. And then come types of data. Again, something which is more relevant to the GRC people, to risk and governance people, right? But you'll have to have knowledge about this, because this is important for the exam, and you can get some questions out of it, like what is a PII data or PHI data and how they are different from one another. Okay. So given a scenario, prepare a toolkit and use appropriate forensic tools during an investigation. So this is a module which I'd like to stress upon, because I don't think a lot of blue teamers work on forensic analysis or forensic investigations, right? So there are forensic kits available if you'll search for it, or I would recommend you guys to buy the official book for CYSA Plus. There you'll find about these forensic kits in detail. Okay, what they consist of, what sort of software there, what sort of tools are there which consist of the forensic kits, right? There are write blockers available to aid you in the investigation. Again, what's a write blocker? I will discuss about it briefly as we go through the slide. But yeah, this becomes very crucial when you're investigating on a hard disk, okay, on which something bad has happened. And then comes incident response plan. So a lot of people have asked me about incident response and how they can build standard incident response for, say, ransomware attack, DDoS attack. If there's a phishing attack, what should you do? So we will discuss about this as well. Okay. So yeah, incident response first of all. So incident response again presents a life cycle, like vulnerability analysis or vulnerability management life cycle. You start with preparation, okay, and then you do the detection, decontamination. After that you do investigation. Post comes remediation. Remediation is a part where you try to cure out the problem, where you try, if there's a malware on your system, if there's a ransomware on your system, you try to decrypt it in the remediation part, and then if you cannot decrypt it, then comes the recovery part where you restore the backup from history, and then after that you record everything for your knowledge, so how you can evade this situation in future. Steps involved in cyber incident response are preparation, identification or detection of a threat. Something has happened, you identify it, and then you report it right away to the senior authority, right? And then comes contaminate or decontamination. And after that comes investigation on how it got into your network, or how the breach happened. What was the breach point? What was where the hole lies, from where the malware got into your network. What is the problem? And then you eradicate the problem, or you solve the issue, you remediate the issue. And then comes the lesson learned and recovery part, right? So lesson learned is also a very important part, which often is derived through problem tickets into ServiceNow, right? After a priority one incident, there's a problem incident that is opened up with respect to the priority one incident, and the basis of that problem incident is to record everything which has happened, and so that it can be avoided in next time. Yeah, that is lesson learned for you. Okay. So use case example of cyber incident response. So whenever there is a true incident, if I talk about true incident, it's something big that has struck your organization, right? There's a brute force attack happening at big level. Okay, there's a virus that is keep on spreading and that you cannot stop it, right? There is an intrusion, which is a big level intrusion, which which has been notified by an end user that his asset has been compromised, and a lot of emails had been sent to different people from his email ID. So what should you do now, or how should you prepare yourself for the next steps in those cases? Or if there is an email incident, there was a phishing email which was sent to X number of your employees, and Y number of employees have actually clicked on that link, and their email address is now compromised. So what steps should you take? So this is all that cybersecurity incident response talks about. Say I have taken an example here of a brute force attack. So imagine that there's a brute force attack that has happening, or that has happened recently. So that's possible questions that you can ask from SIM's perspective, or from cybersecurity incident response team's perspective, right? Is the user a valid user, right? I mean, the user or the victim now whose ID was compromised, or was trying to be compromised by repeatedly trying to put in different combination of passwords. Is that a valid user? That's the first question. Okay, and what membership does that user account hold? Is he a critical user? Is he a very important user like a VP or somebody who is of notice? I just have a question on contamination part. So hold on to that question. We'll talk about it at the end of the session. Okay. There are some slides which are still left, so we'll talk about that question. I'll definitely get back to you. Okay. So what privileges does that account has? Is it locked or not? If not, please go ahead and let's lock it out, so that there are not new entries which are generated due to the brute force attack. And then reset his user ID password again. Okay. Then possible actions followed by these questions is ask the person behind the user if he or she is failed to log in, if it is a legitimate attempt, or if it was indeed a scheduled task or a cron job which was running with the person's email ID or the person's account, right? And he has recently changed his password, but the cron job, there the password is not changed, or in the scheduled job the password is not changed. So that could be the cause of this problem. If not, then yes, this is a brute force attack indeed, and then you can take you should take your action. You should take your actions in response to that scenario. Okay. So yeah, this is how you should step forth when there is a true incident. Again, followed by questions, and then questions are followed by actions, right? And this is completely different for different scenarios. I have just taken out 4 examples here. Brute force being the first of them, and then there could be a virus spread, a ransomware, of course, or a crypto miner which has encrypted everything on your desktop and then asking you for a certain amount of money to release all your data. Yeah? Or if there's a phishing incident, which I have just talked about. So you should proceed with caution. And then there are steps available, standard steps available in the internet. I think you should take out the standard steps and customize it according to your need of your organization. So yeah, then comes incident forensics. So forgive me for not being very detailed about these slides. As I said that this is a vast course. There is a full day training for 5 days to cover everything which is in CISA, and I just want to show you the glimpse of it, show you on a high level what concepts you should learn about. If you want to have a holistic approach about security, and also if you want to pass CISA exam, this is something which you should take into consideration. Okay. So things to learn into the forensic sections is chain of custody. Yeah, something which I don't think a lot of people are familiar with. Even I was not familiar of it until I came across this part of this theory. So it's a record of evidence handling from collection to presentation in court. So on a scene, what happens is if a forensic investigator reaches out to a scene, what he does is it takes out all the evidences into his possession, right? And then he analyzes it. He goes through the data to take out everything that he can, right? And after that, he submits it in the court. So this is a complete chain of custody. Why is this important? I saw a question on this straight on the chain of custody in the exam. So that is why I thought of mentioning this. Okay. So this is complete theory, and I think you should go through it at least once and to be very clear about it.
Hello.
Steps in forensics as, sorry,
Hello.
who's that?
Hello.
Hello, yeah, who's that? Sonali, please be on mute. If you do not have a question, which is very important, please go on mute. Thank you so much. So the steps, as we have talked about: preparation, acquisition of all the evidences, and then analysis of them, and then presentation of them in the court. Okay. Tools which you should look out for is autopsy, write blocker, and hash my files. This is just 3 tools. There are n number of tools available. Autopsy is a browser, right, which runs on top of Firefox, Chrome, or other browsers, which lets you go through all the directories. Say if there is a USB drive which you are analyzing. So with the help of autopsy, you can go through all the drives into that USB, or all the partitions into that USB, and then you can read the files which are there. Okay. Or you can read the contents which are left over. Right. Write blocker, another very important tool which I promised of talking about earlier. So you insert a write blocker right in the beginning of a forensic analysis. It blocks the operating system from making any further changes into the file system, because once it is up for forensic analysis, even a change of a digit can mix up all the information which is there, right? So you insert a write blocker, you run a write blocker right before your investigation begins. Hash my files, it's just to hash your, it's just to check the integrity of your files. It can check the integrity of one or more files on the basis of MD5 hash or SHA hashes. Okay. On your right is a diagram which I like. It relates incident response to forensics. So as you can see, where incident response ends, forensic actually starts. Okay. So you have your events which are isolated and then contained into a confined space for you to investigate it. Once you investigate it, you report everything, and then post-incident analysis is there, right? So with this, I bring you the last module of this section, which is security architecture and tool set. So this is where you'll have to be familiar with the risk frameworks. Again, not directly related to SOC people, but yeah, this comes into picture when you have to develop a holistic overview of cybersecurity. So risk frameworks, NIST, ISO, COBIT, CySA, TOGAF, and ITIL. You should be at least familiar with this, how they operate, on what basis they operate. Like NIST has these 5 steps: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Okay, and again, this is very detailed. I want to avoid getting into all these smaller steps because that will take a lot of time. But yeah, this is just to give you an idea about what you have to deal with if you are to give that exam. Okay, and then there are policies which are very straightforward, very simple: password policies, acceptable use policy, and data ownership policy. I can take 2 minutes to describe password policies. So a strong password policy says that your password should be changed every 90 days. This is one of the controls. Okay. The second should be, it should be a complex combination of alphanumeric, alphanumeric characters and digits. Right? There should be a special character. There should be a capital character and then followed by small characters. So these are the password policies which one should set in their organization. Okay, so this is where we talk about security architecture, right? How your security is built ground up, right? So password policy is an essential part of it, and this is how you deal with your password policies. Okay, so this is an example of network control device, right? One of the devices which record the logon hours for a user, Anthony Stevens. Okay, what happens is he logs in at every definite time on Monday and logs out every day. So he does it for Monday to Friday, and there should be no entry on Sundays and Saturdays. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is a very straightforward example which says that, okay, there are logon permitted and logon denied. Right? The logon is denied on the weekends. Okay. And on the weekdays, the logon is accepted or permitted. Right. So this table shows you how he logs in and logs out, at what time he comes in and goes out for the user Anthony Stevens. And if there's an anomaly, it should be widely visible on this chart, and then you can ask questions to Anthony about that anomaly. So this is one of the controls which can help you, pick out the anomaly if there is any, right, in terms of login and log out, right? Say this comes into handy, when you put together a bigger picture that I, being a hacker, hacked the ID of Anthony, and then I chose Sunday to be the day when I used his login ID to log into the network and then do some malicious activities. So now it's very widely visible because on this chart there would be a blue dot on the Sunday, right, or a blue stripe on Sunday from this hour to this hour, and then the security people can go back to Anthony and then ask him, you are not permissible, you're not allowed to log in on weekends, but yet we see a login attempt on Sunday. So can you explain that? So that can that can lead up to the investigation. Then the end result should be the password reset of Anthony, and all the activities, if can be tracked down, what was done on Sunday should be reverted, because of course those are not legitimate, except the fact that Anthony himself had some legitimate work on Sunday. Okay, so this is how you can pick the anomaly out. So the second snapshot which you see is actually taken from Active Directory, which it talks about his membership. So you can see that he is a very normal user. So nothing special is expected out of Anthony Stevens, right? Because he only has the domain. Okay, I'm sorry. He is a domain admin here, right? So he is somebody of importance. Okay, so he can do changes on domain level, right? So his ID becomes very important, because if I can get hold of Anthony's ID, I become an admin on domain level. Plus, I don't have to reveal my name. All the blame would be put on Anthony's name because I'm using his ID. Okay, so this is why proper control should be put into place to prevent these things from happening. And everybody's membership, everybody's accessibility is to be accounted for, right? When you are tracking down an incident, or when you are trying to prevent an incident rather from happening. So all these things come into picture, and everything should be accounted for. Yeah, security issues associated with context-based authentication. What we are talking about here is one, how a user authenticates, and the second point talks about IAM, how his membership is accredited into the organization, right? So what could be a security issue? Timing could be a security issue. As I have just explained, authentication may be valid only for a certain amount of time and not for the other times. Yet, if you see an authentication on an abnormal time, that could be an indication that something bad is happening or something out of the ordinary or something interesting is happening and should be investigated thoroughly. Yeah, location-based anomaly or location-based issue. A straightforward example could be people are only permitted to log in the network, right, when they come to the office. But if you see a login from outside of the office or from a remote network, then you see that something interesting is happening. Okay, frequency again says the same thing. If there's a regular user who has a 9 to 5 job, who logs in every day at 9 and leaves the office at 5, he has more frequent logins and logouts on the weekend or even on the same day. On Monday, he has 10 logins and 10 logouts. So that is an anomaly which sticks out and should be investigated. Last but not the least, behavioral. So if there is a user, again, say Anthony, he is a system administrator, he need not visit all the social media websites, right, and all the streaming websites. But if you see all the streaming websites being accessed by him, so or all different websites accessed by him from his endpoint, then this is something that can be investigated. Yeah, the point that I'm trying to put here is there are basic security issues with how people are authenticating with the system and how membership is granted to different people in different organizations. And this is actually the base of how personals work in cybersecurity, right? So business always is driven by people, process, and technology, right? And the most weak factor of between these three or among these three comes out to be people, right? People are the weakest factor or weakest link which can be exploited. So this is how security architecture should be set up. There should be vigilance on all these points. Somebody should be taking note of all these anomalies happening and all these different points, right? Now let's talk a little bit about the IAM and how security issues associated with the identity, right? So in an organization, your identity is everything for you, right? Your email address, your Active Directory account is everything that you are in an organization. Okay, so nobody knows Anthony apart from his account in the organization. If he does not have his account to log in, then he cannot do the jobs which are delegated to him, right? Nor he can say that, okay, I was assigned this job, but no, I cannot do it. He cannot do it because he does not have his ID. His ID is everything to him. His digital identity or his digital persona is everything, when he comes into that organization. So personals, endpoints, servers, and services, all these have security issues, different security issues associated with them. Personal is something which we have talked at length, right, for the past 5-6 minutes, right? Endpoints have different security issues. Of course, if you have your endpoint which is not patched to the latest update, yeah, if your antivirus is not running with the latest definitions, then your endpoint is at risk. Again, same thing goes for server, but there are some more changes. Server have more roles deployed upon them. If you have a web server, you have more roles deployed upon them, right? So according to the role, the vulnerability or the security issue changes. Okay, so services again have their own security issues, like if you have telnet running for some reason, right? If you have FTP running for some reason, uh, then you are exposing yourself to clear text, because you are transmitting everything and receiving everything in clear text, which anybody can see with the help of Wireshark or any packet analyzer which we have discussed a few minutes ago. Yeah. Roles, again, exemplary image on the far right. The second example or the second snapshot, which is pasted here, is shows that security issue with the role. Well, I won't say that it's an issue directly, right? Just because somebody is a domain admin, it's not an issue. It could lead out to be a potential issue. because he has more rights, he has more privilege, then he is more at risk. Okay, so this is where risk evaluation comes into picture also. Last comes the application. Again, issue with application depends on your custom application and how it is built. So we'll not get into that so much. This is just to give you an idea of how security issues associated with different things at a very basic level, very generic level, right? Right. Then comes another interesting part, which is SDLC. Okay. So it's just that here is double SDLC, Security Software Development Lifecycle. Okay. So the snapshot shows you how plan is developed, designed, and then implemented from scratch. Okay, from end to end, how a software is developed from security's perspective. These are all the points which are taken into consideration. Okay, and how you can test out the tool, or how you can test out the software. One mean could be fuzzing. Yeah. Fuzzing is just testing out your software with random inputs and then doing it so rapidly that you are withholding, you are testing out the configuration of how much data it can hold, yeah, before it breaks down or wears out, right? Stress testing, again, testing the resources which is assigned to your application or the resources which are being used to host your application. Then input validation, again, very, very important, very, very crucial point. It becomes very crucial for web application testing. Right? If you do not have input validation turned on, you could fall victim to an injection attack or to a cross scripting attack. How? We'll take a look at that in just a moment. Right? And then comes regression testing. Regression testing does not directly impact security, but yeah, this is again something which we should be aware of. Regression testing, just to give you a feel of what regression testing is. Say if you have developed an application, you call it version 1.0, and then you come with a patch, and then you call it version 1.2 or 1.1. Then regression testing says that, okay, I should see that my version 1.2 is not vulnerable to vulnerabilities which were exploited in the version 1.0. Okay. So this is just to make sure that you're not falling victim to any old crap. Yeah. Fuzzing. Let's talk about fuzzing a little bit. So they input the random data into an application. A poorly secured app can fall victim to buffer overflow, right? We have an example of buffer overflow in the upcoming slide. So I will explain how a buffer overflow works. Okay. But yeah, the end result of a buffer overflow will be either your app will freeze or it will crash. Yeah. So secure coding, how you can do secure coding. OWASP SANS and the Center of Internet Security have their guidelines or best practices of how you should approach the coding securely. Okay. So yeah, OWASP has these top vulnerabilities published. Like every year, they come up with a new list, which says that, okay, this is the top vulnerability which you should take into consideration if you are trying to develop a web application, right? So these are the top 10 risks associated with web applications. Again, you can see that the input validation risk is here in the list. It's at the second place. Okay. Injection again tops the list. So injection is putting in something which is not intended, right? And then it can give you the access, or it can give you the access to the database. It can give you the access to some of the entries, or you can see the complete database, right? Based on how it is encoded, you can get different accesses after injecting something malicious. Broken authentication is something that you can take advantage of if there is an authentication protocol which does not gets completed from end to end. There's a loophole in between, so you can exploit that and then insert your input there in between, and then you can get access. Yeah. So I'll not talk a lot about web application security. right? Two reasons. One, because we are running out of time. Second, it's not falls directly into the scope of CYSA. You just need to have high level overview of this. Okay, so this is one of the examples which I wanted to talk about. This is a simple injection. Okay, so it says that the sample query is http://URL and followed by the string 1 equals 1. It says that go to the first entry and evaluate it if the Boolean expression 1 equals 1 is true, which will always be true. Yeah. So it will go through all the rows and then it will display the complete table to you. Right. On your right, what you see is the actual output of the URL which the hacker has inserted, right? So the original URL was http://server.example/catalog.php ? Okay. Up till now, you're just visiting the catalog page, okay, and then it is extended by category equals 1 or 1 equals 1, right? Whenever category is true or the Boolean expression 1 equals 1 holds true, which will always be the case. So you will see all these rows displayed. So you'll see the complete table, right? It does not matter if you have access to it or not, right? It is not validating the input in the backend. That is why you can see the complete database. So you can see that how easily you can fall victim to an injection attack if you have not done your input validation right. Okay, if you're not inspecting what is coming to you as a request, then you can give away a lot of information which could be sensitive to you. Right? This is just monitors and their price, so nothing to worry about. But imagine if these were credit card details, then there would be severe loss to the company which was hosting this web page, right? So yeah, this is one example of an injection. Injection also work in the SQL database very nicely. They fit in into SQL queries very nicely, right? The second example, which is highlighted with red, which you can see, or the second last point which you can see is select star from a table where username equals and then followed by
Hello.
a string. Right? Hello, who's that? Okay, please be on mute. Not have a very pressing question. Please be on mute. Sudha, can you please be on mute? You know how, for those who know how SQL query works, it starts and ends with a double inverted comma. So if you put a double inverted comma in between, it breaks how it is actually written, and then you can separate a part of the string from the complete sentence, and then it will be executed at the next step, right? So again, the same thing which you are doing in the first example. So you're trying to treat it for its vulnerability, and then you're trying to execute a particular query, which is again Boolean expression 1:1. So doing the same thing, but this time we are doing it on the SQL database, right? The first example was where I was just trying to put in this Boolean query into the URL directly, right? So that is injecting into the URI, and the second example is injecting something into the SQL query, okay? And you can put this query into the username, password field, or any field which you think takes in input. You can put this query and then test out the result, right? Yeah, and if it is possible for the vulnerability, you will see the relevant output there. Okay, so yeah, see, this is buffer overflow which I was talking about. So fuzzing actually tests the buffer overflow, how it does it. So how to the phishing email, how to process goes. Okay, I will talk about the phishing IR once I finish up with this example. Okay. So for those who are very familiar with C, this is a small snippet of a code, which just takes into data from user input. It just copies the data into a different buffer, right? The size of that buffer is 100. Okay. What happens if the data which is input by the user goes beyond 100 bytes? right? The next data will be written in the next step, okay? And either the program will corrupt, or if you have crafted it to serve a different purpose, you can get arbitrary access, or then you can get your command executed actually. What you do is, till 100 bytes, you can put random data, and then from there on, you can put your actual command which you want to be executed. Because after 100 bytes, your command will be overwritten in the next step, and then actually your command will execute. So this is where buffer overflow now leaves you vulnerable to be exploited. Okay, and that is why you can see that in a lot of vulnerabilities where it's written that it's vulnerable for buffer overflow, the result could be executing arbitrary command. Yeah, so that explains the reason. So if you get to know that it can only hold up to 100 bytes of value, so you can put 100 bytes of random characters or just garbage, and then after that you can put your real query of do this, do that, go here, copy this, execute that, and then that will actually get executed. Okay. So the second snippet shows the cure or talks about the cure. Just a simple if else will do. So you just put a else and say that if the data length is less than or equal to 100, very good. Go ahead and copy out that data and then proceed with the program. Else print error or throw error says too many characters, and then break the program and exit out. Okay. So this is how you have just saved your code from being vulnerable to buffer overflow. Right? And this is again a part of secure coding. So I don't think query is very relevant to CoISA, but yeah, just to give you an example of this, no, buffer overflow vulnerability. I have just mentioned these two things. Okay. So with this, I come to the questions now. For the past 60 minutes or more than 60 minutes, I have tried to describe or I've tried to go this can help you out. Okay, and I am ready for the questions now. Let's take some questions before we end this session actually. So, okay, one of the questions which I recently saw, let's start from the bottom actually. So the question which I recently saw was how to analyze a phishing email, how the process goes with incident management, asked by Steven. Okay, so it goes out for a larger conversation actually, Steven, but to begin with, it starts with what sort of email protection you have. That is one. Once you have analyzed, hello, okay. So once you have got to know that there is a phishing incident, active phishing incident going on, the first step that you should do is secure the user who has fallen victim to the phishing incident. Okay, and what you should do probably, the first thing that you should do probably is block his email address for the time being, suspend his email address for the time being for being able to send more emails internally. Because this is what the hacker will do. Once he has got hold of the user account, he'll try, sorry, Rakesh Kher. Yeah, you have anything to say? Okay, no. So suspend the email address, suspend the email account from being able to send out more emails internally. That is first thing you do. And reset the user account password, right? And then block all the indicators of compromise that you can take out of the phishing email, original email. So original email comes into picture, and it's uh, it's very important that you analyze the original email, look at the header where it has come from, examine the sender IP, the sender domain, what URL is there, right? What sort of attachments are there? Look into the attachments further, right? Are they directing you to a URL which seems like a OneDrive URL, but when you analyze that URL, it takes out to the different IP, which is not owned by Microsoft. So this is the investigation part, but before the investigation comes, you have to lock down the email account and then reset the password immediately. Also, the email team should proactively delete all the emails, all the similar emails which were delivered to other participants, because if one person was compromised, it's very likely that the same email was sent to other people, if not a phishing attack, if not a spear phishing, right? So yeah, so email team has to do a lot of groundwork to find out similar email trails and delete them, and then work on that email account rapidly to block it first from being able to send out more emails and then reset the password out. Okay. So, but yeah, if you talk about a more formal plan, more formal incident response plan, um, I should I should have something, with me. So possibly we can connect after this, and then I can hand you out something. Okay. So, okay, an example of how do we do the containment part was asked by Jyoti, right? So Jyoti, to answer your question, the containment part, this is where a lot of antivirus, new generation antivirus gives you a fantastic option of logical isolation. Okay, what logical isolation means is, I take an example of Carbon Black. Okay, Carbon Black is a next generation antivirus which takes into account all the assets, all the workstations and servers, and then monitors them actively for any threats. If there is a threat and you want to contain that, what you do is you disconnect it from the network logically. Now what is going to happen is all the outbound communication are going to be stopped on the machine itself. Okay, but it will keep on talking to the Carbon Black console all this while, so that you get to know about its health, and you get to know about the live uh, you know, situation of what is happening on the ground on that asset, right? So I mean to ask, what exactly do between detection and investigation? Detection is the original notification which you receive from various means. Your IPS can notify you for a outbreak, right? A potential malware outbreak. Your SIM can notify you that something bad is happening. I can see it after correlating so many events. Right? Your antivirus can notify you that I have seen so many malicious files being written on that system. Yeah, that is the original step. That is the detection part. Okay. So containment comes first, then comes investigation, because your motive is to stop it from spreading. So containment is like quarantine action. So if I were to take a real life example, if somebody in a family gets a flu, okay, what we